Hello there, thrill seekers. How you doing? There is new stuff on my blog. I put a new article up there yesterday. That is hardcorezen.info, and I put a new entry on my podcast, which is the second of my talks about Yubutsu Yobutsu, Buddhas Alone Together with Buddhists. That is available wherever podcasts are sold, or not sold because it's not for sale. It's for free, and you can get it on Spotify, and I'm sure that's what I look it up on myself. You can get it up on the other platforms where you can get podcasts. Just look for the Hardcore Zen podcast. Okay, now that talk I did for my last two videos about conservative Buddhists brought some emails from people who were both saying, yay, conservatism. I always thought it was conservatism, but now I find out it's conservatism. Anyway, is the right way to think. And then a bunch of more impassioned emails saying, no, conservative thought is not the right Buddhist thought, and explaining to me in detail why, and so on and so forth. So this got me thinking about the entire idea of where the idea comes from, that there is a right way to think about things and a wrong way to think about things if you're a Buddhist. There's a proper Buddhist way to think about things and a way to think about things which is not properly Buddhist. I don't know what Ziggy's barking at. I've been trying to figure it out all morning. I'm just going to let him bark. So I think part of the confusion might come up because we have in the Noble Eightfold Path, the first two of the folds of the Noble Eightfold Path are right view and right thought. So this might lead people to think that there is a correct point of view to have and a correct kind of thoughts to have. So we need to have the right kind of thoughts and the right kind of view. I think a lot of people who think they understand Buddhism often kind of go with this idea that Buddhism says there's a right way to think about things. You know, if there's an event in the world, there must be a right view of that event and a wrong view of that event. If there's a problem going on, you know, that needs solving, then there's a right way to think about it and a wrong way to think about it. And that's what they think right view and right thinking mean. I would like to introduce you, actually I have brought this up in previous videos, but I'll bring it up again. This is a piece by Dogen, which is fairly obscure. It's called, 37 Elements of Bodhi. And it is unusual in that in this essay, Dogen, he must have gotten a treat from my mother-in-law because he just ran over here with something. Anyway, and he shut up. This is interesting because Dogen talks about some stuff that is generally considered by most Mahayana Buddhists to be part of the so-called Hinayana or lesser vehicle tradition, including the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. And when Dogen gets to the Eightfold Path stuff about right view and right thinking, I'm going to just read to you what he says. Right view as a branch of the path is the inside of the eyes containing the body. At the same time, even prior to the body, we must have the eye that is prior to the body. Though the view has been gradually realized in the past, it is realized now as the real universe and is experienced immediately. In sum, those who do not put the body into the eyes are not Buddhist patriarchs or Buddhist ancestors, if you want to use that gender-neutral term. Nishijima Roshi's footnote on that idea of the eye that precedes the body, he says, suggests the ability to regulate our physical actions even before we are conscious of them. And he also describes it as he translates it in another passage as eyes that precede the moment, and says it suggests intuition. So right view suggests an intuitive view. It doesn't suggest a view of things that is the correct view, the correct way of understanding things. Well, it is the correct way of understanding things in a sense, sorry. But it is... It's not just like understanding events that are in the news in the proper way, you know, the approved way. And then he goes on with right thinking. Right thinking is a branch of the path. When we establish this thinking, the Buddhas of the 10 directions all appear. So the manifestation of the 10 directions and the manifestations of the Buddhas are just the time of the establishment of this concrete thinking. And Master Dogen uses these characters to suggest that right thinking is the state in Zazen, a state that is different from ordinary thinking, and that this state should be our standard. That's the footnote. When we establish this concrete thinking, we are beyond self and transcending the external world. And at the same time, in the very moment of the present, on thinking concrete facts, we go straight to Varanasi. And Varanasi is the place where the Buddha attained his enlightenment, so we become enlightened. The place where the thinking exists is Varanasi. An eternal Buddha says, I am thinking the concrete state of not thinking. How can the state of not thinking be thought? It is different from thinking. This is right consideration, right thinking. To break a zafu is right thinking. So to sit a lot of zazen is right thinking. And this is, of course, the old thing about it's different from thinking. There's also another footnote to this that it doesn't appear in the printed version, but appears in a version that's online of this same thing, so it must be Nishijima Roshi's footnote. I'm not sure why it's not in the printed version. It says Omo, which is the character used to convey this idea of right thinking, covers a wide range of mental activities, perhaps even wider than the English word think, including wishing and hoping. On the one hand, the other character, Omonmiru, okay, that's what the translation is given as. On the one hand, that word means to ponder, reflect on, think over. So the compound shi has a somewhat general and reflective feeling. On the other hand, Sanskrit word samkalpa seems to carry thinking on a definite purpose. So there you go. That's a lot of linguistic stuff. Now, what I think of when I think of this stuff is a piece called Shinjin Mei, and this is a nice book which I still haven't finished by Philippe Coupé about Shinjin Mei, and it is an old Buddhist poem whose first stanza goes something like, "The great way is not difficult, just let go of picking and choosing, just let go of love and hate." And this let go of love and hate is what I think of when I think of right thinking when it comes to, having an opinion about something, which is just let it go. Anytime you have an opinion about something, it means you love some aspect of it and you hate the other. You love this way of framing things and you hate that way of framing things. You think the Democrats are right and the Republicans are wrong. So you love the Democrats, you hate the Republicans. That kind of thinking. That's what we're being asked to let go of. And one way that I think is useful to make oneself, or that I've found useful to make myself able to let go of this, is to examine my own thinking, examine my own views and opinions, and realize that they come from a complex combination of different causes that are very difficult to call my own. I mean, for example, in my own case, a lot of the way I view the world has to do with this really weird way that I grew up, which to me was normal because it was the way I grew up, so I thought that was the standard of everything, but it isn't. From age 8 to 11, this white kid from the Ohio suburbs, lived in Africa, in Nairobi, Kenya, and I had a very different experience there of being a racial minority, an ethnic minority, an immigrant, those kind of things which are unusual for what most people walking down the street would think of as, the typical white American's experience of life. What are you drinking, Ziggy? Are you drinking muddy water out of the... Don't drink that stuff. Sorry, it rained last night, and there's puddles of muddy water all over the place, and Ziggy was behind me drinking from a puddle of muddy water, so I went and got him some decent water, because he was sick the other day, and I'm like, I don't know, what did he eat something out in the yard or whatever? Anyway, doesn't matter. So, what was I saying? So, a lot of what I think of as my opinions about anything have to do with a lot of forces that were beyond my control. I had no choice in where I was born or when I was born, or I had no choice in whether or not I went to Africa. I guess I had a choice of moving to Japan or not, but actually, in my own way of thinking, the economics, the fact that I was dirt poor and needed a job had a lot to do with it, and that was out of my control. And the fact that I would even be attracted to or given the opportunity to move to Japan was out of my control. So a lot of things that, even the things that come into my sphere of influence that make me decide what I decide about certain issues are out of my control. So the problem, as I see it, with most views and opinions that we have, is that we make them mine. I go, this is my view and my opinion, and then all the things that stem from making a view and opinion mine, which means I have to defend it. It must be right if it's mine, because of course I'm going to think the right things, and I want to convince other people to hold that opinion, because if more people held the same opinion as I do about things, then the world would be a better place, and so on and so forth. And anyone who has any opinion is working with the same set of stuff for their opinion. So it's just an opinion that has happened because of the particular karmic circumstances of that person's life, and they are mistakenly identifying that opinion and view as themselves and deciding they have to defend it. And so if you realize, or let me just point it to myself, like I always say, when I realized how my opinions aren't even really my own opinions when I really get down to it, and that there is no me to whom that opinion belongs to, and because there's no me to whom the opinion belongs to, then defending the me by defending the opinion or pushing the opinion upon others or insisting that other people should have the same opinion is all futile. And getting everybody to think exactly the way I think, good luck to me trying to do that. It's not going to happen. And given the weird circumstances of my own life and how my opinions developed in my own case, it's super unlikely that I'm ever going to be able to convince the world to have my opinion about anything. So I realized that my opinions are kind of meaningless and kind of don't belong to me and aren't even my fault, really. So I look at other people and go, they have this stupid opinion about something, but it's just because they came from this set of karmic circumstances and whatnot, and they develop this opinion, and then they're mistakenly thinking of themselves as a self, and they need to express that opinion and need to force that opinion onto others, and it's just silly. When I say that I don't believe the leftist point of view is necessarily the Buddhist point of view, it doesn't mean that I think the rightist, the right-wing point of view is the Buddhist point of view. I think they're both ridiculous, and the more extreme, the harder you hold on to an opinion, the harder you hold on to the idea of I've picked and chosen these things, picked and chosen these things, the worse it gets. So the best way to live a life, the most comfortable way, the easiest way, is to learn to let go of whatever opinions you have. And so in my own case, what I try to do is I see an opinion arise and I go, yeah, whatever. If I find that I have an opinion lurking in the back of my mind that I go, ugh, I don't like that one, I don't really worry that it means something about myself. I used to worry about that. But it means nothing about myself. There's just all sorts of influences that go into this and that get mixed around and then pop up one day. And who cares? They aren't mine. They don't matter. So, for the most part, I think what Nishijima Roshi says is right. This idea of the ability to regulate our physical actions even before we are conscious of them. This is what I think the Zen exercise is all about. Exercise is not the way. The Zen practice, that's the word I wanted, is all about. Is a practice that makes one better able to regulate one's physical actions before one is even consciously aware of them. Before they even become a problem, you've already developed habits of just letting them go. Because if you sit Zazen, all sorts of thoughts and things and opinions happen, and for your first few years, at least for my first few years, there was this idea that, oh my god, I have to act on that, I have to say that thing, or I have to go do that thing, and it can be a very uncomfortable position to place yourself in, where you're trying to sit still while all this is raging up in your mind, going, you gotta do this, and you gotta have that, and you gotta tell that guy that thing, and you gotta remember to, and all that stuff. Learning to be able to sit with that day after day after day makes a person generally able to rein that stuff in a little better the longer that you do it, which is why I recommend doing Zazen every day, and doing it even when it's uncomfortable and difficult, and understanding that when it is uncomfortable and difficult, that is the best kind of Zazen you can be doing, is the uncomfortable, difficult Zazen, where it's like, I gotta do something about this. Sit with that, learn to sit with that, and that is very helpful. So that's what I got to say about views and opinions. I hope that made some sort of sense. If you want to help me have more views and opinions, you can send a donation to me via Patreon and PayPal. And if you want to know where to go to do that, you go to or hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is where you'll find links to my Patreon and PayPal. Those are my main ways of making a living, pretty much my only ways of making a living. And I really appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't gotta pay if you don't want to pay. So don't have an opinion about that. Just do it or don't do it. And thank you very much for that. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey Ziggy, what you doing? Oh, he doesn't like the tarp, huh? You don't like tarps, huh? Ooh, he's scared of the tarp. There he goes.